to our transmission for the month of October 2025, Libra season, moving into Scorpio season. So, if we haven't had a pleasure of meeting, my name is Xenia, and every month I tap into the energies that I'm feeling that are relevant for my community. So just want to thank you for tuning in, and what you can expect over the next 20 to 30 minutes is some messages from divination practices, themes that can help support you, guide you, give you an anchor during these times of destabilization and change. I know it's been a really intense time for so many different reasons. And let's just get into our energies for the month ahead. Take a moment to close your eyes, focus on your heart. Take a nice deep breath, imagining all your energy coming into this moment. Feel your feet on the floor, just the sensation of your feet wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And just take a moment to call your energy into this now moment and to receive from this conversation, from this transmission, what is meant for you, and to easily sift through and let go of whatever is not resonant with who you are and where you are in this moment. And then when you're ready, just let your eyes flutter open. So I want to begin with the stone of the month. I always pull from a book called The Book of Stones by Robert Simmons and Aisha Asian. And it's my favorite divinatory tool because the mineral energies are just so alive in their frequencies for me, and I find it to be so accurate. So for the month of October, the stone energy that came through is called Purpurite, Purpurite. And the key words for this stone are purification, initiation, freedom, insight, truth, power, and sovereignty. It is a stone that balances the polarities of the wind and earth element. And the two chakras that it works with are the crown and the third eye. This stone, according to Robert Simmons, is connected to the violet ray, and it helps us purify our meridians and our energy fields. It helps us open up to more experiences of consciousness and emanates an energy of psychic protection that helps us to clear and cleanse our auric fields, keeping us clear of attachments or projections or energies that are just not in our highest good. It is a stone of initiation, and you can work with it in meditation, and it helps you do dream work, and it also helps to become more of an active choreographer in bringing in synchronicity that connects the material world and the dream world. It's known as a stone of freedom because it helps us to break through psychological barriers, and specifically those that keep us chained to the feeling of connection to routine that's draining our life force. So it helps us be a little bit more comfortable in the unknown and uncertainty. And what I think is the most interesting thing that I read about this stone is that it helps us to leave behind a familiar sense of identity. Even when we don't know what the new identity is, it helps us understand a greater, vaster aspect of us. And it's not about bringing the new identity into clarity. It's about trusting our ability to surrender an identity that no longer fits us. It's connected to insight and truth because it helps us to dig into deeper parts of reality that are below the surface. And that is very much what we're going to be navigating and what we have been navigating, but in a much deeper way. I think there will be twists and turns and surprises in narratives that are overly linear or that are attaching us to a 3D way of making sense of things with our mind. It is a stone that really supports oracles or anyone working with the tarot or the I Ching to help you better understand any guidance you receive, which is amazing because in Inner Sanctum, which is my 3-month seasonal kinship club membership, we're going to be working on sharpening our own divination tools all season long. So it's really cool that we have this energy supporting us to tap into our own divine gifts. It also helps us understand when we're being deceptive or when we're deceiving others. It allows us to tap into our power in a way that we will not abuse it. So this is also touching on themes of September. If you were with us then, the stones in September were also about accepting spiritual power and clearing our resistance to owning our power by purifying any kind of weird, stuck energy that would tempt us to abuse our power. This is why the stone is coming in with both this purification energy, but also this initiation energy. So it's very much accepting our agency and what we're capable of through clearing, owning our sovereignty because we've done the ditch digging to see where we're lying to ourselves and where others are lying to us. Now, according to Naisha Xian, Purpurite is also an ally between the earth element and the wind element. What is really beautiful in the book is Naisha talks about the actual properties and chemical elements that make up purpurite, like manganese, iron, and phosphate, and how those relate to the energy of purpurite. So, for example, the manganese helps stabilize the nervous system, which helps us open to love and bliss, helps us to meditate, helps us connect to oneness. Iron helps us to ground that experience in the physical body, helps one walk in alignment with the divine, helps us be in the divine current with the words we say, with the thoughts we think, and the actions we take. So it grounds that spiritual energy. And then phosphorus, the phosphate, which is an element of light, it helps us integrate more light on a physical level, which allows us to illuminate the mind and reveal spiritual truth. And it literally helps the brain feed its neurons to function accurately so that we can actually integrate the information that we receive in our meditations, in our spiritual unions. So it's very much a stone of spiritual embodiment and aligning the mind with the divine, teaching us to walk on the earth, and I quote, with grace and beauty, to use our earthly experience as an opportunity to enlighten the material realm. So all of that information is from the Book of Stones. If you're curious or want a copy, there's actually an Internet Archive copy that you can read a PDF of if you want to take a look. But what I think is so beautiful is this is really a stone that helps us release stress and let go of worry and anxiety and bring the highest light into the densest realms of physicality. And the affirmation is very beautiful. It is, I call upon spirit for purification, guidance, inspiration, and truth. And I take responsibility for the highest expression of my personal power. So I'm going to say something that I feel a little bit nervous to say about this month. And I think what's been happening, especially ramping up last month during the eclipse season and also this month, is that we are starting to understand how to hold the space between the human experience and be very honest about what we're walking through. If you're tapped into the current events, you see really terrible things happening. You also see a lot of beautiful things happening. There have been changing tides among the governments of European countries, mostly because the citizens are protesting, especially in Italy. There has been support for the Gaza Freedom Flotilla from Spain, from Greece. There have been uprisings all across the world, from the Philippines. We had the one just in Nepal. And people are showing up to fight against the violence to peaceful protests in response to the incredible cruelty taken to separate families by ICE. And I want to acknowledge everything that we're walking through, but I also want to say that we're in this uncomfortable place where I actually think that our minds are releasing control to a narrative of only being able to change the world through the mental field. And when we're in the mental field, the mind's job is to dissect and control. But energetically, a lot of what's happening is we're opening up to a field that's much vaster than what the mind is capable of. And as we open up to our spiritual perspective, we're opening up to our spiritual agency. And we're in a very tenuous position. It's almost like a puberty of spirituality where we're starting to we're not quite mature into the spiritual lens, and we're still holding the lens of the part of us that feels like life is always happening to us. And so there's this tension here. We're holding this space, we're holding the place of tension and being creative within it, not through throwing ourselves into reactivity, not through trying to prove ourselves and demonstrate our goodness to others, but really tapping into what's really true for us, what's really true for our spirit, tapping into the places where we have imbibed patriarchy, colonization, oppression, persecution, polarization. We are taking deep responsibility for our energy. And we are clearing and cleaning up and integrating all of these things that many of us have personally walked through in the last few months. In September, what I've been noticing is a lot of people were dealing with echoes of the past. There's been nostalgia, reaching out to old friends, rethinking about old loves and chapters that didn't close very cleanly, forgiveness with old partnerships, and or surrendering and letting go the ones where there's nothing workable. There's been a big flare up in our lineages and ancestries in what it is that we need to clean up. Echoes of our familial narratives and stories that we are ready to face so that we can choose something else. There have been opportunities where we can go back into patterns of the past, or we can choose something new. And many of us were brought back to our family homes to be immersed in the environment where all those patterns are materialized, and to start to understand what our responsibility is, and to start to see that we can look at responsibility as what we do to show up in 3D, things like going home to help your parents move, or helping someone by caretaking them, and also the very different responsibility of knowing how to use your energy, of taking responsibility for your life, of not displacing yourself as the main character of your life, because you're the only one who lives your life, and learning how to inhabit your life as a main character, and therefore be more empowered and resourced as a person who's trying to help the collective, which most of the people in my community are trying to stretch both. So we are being asked to take a leap of faith around our judgment on what we consider it looks like to be a good person. A lot of our inner savior, inner martyr, inner judge is going to come out and ask us, can you be courageous enough to actually want what you want? Can you be courageous enough to feel like you have choices and agency, and that one of your choices is to ask yourself what you want from this life? And if I was in a different community, I would be really anxious about this, what I'm saying, promoting hyper individualism. But hopefully you understand at this point in time that in nuance and context, it is actually incredibly irresponsible to put yourself in the position of trying to save everyone and not have your own needs met. That's unsustainable. We become a problem in the future when we are constantly taking care of others and not ourselves. We become a problem for other people to take care of too. So there is this sovereignty and responsibility, and how that actually helps us be a better community member. And we're really taking that into a spiritual place this month. And I think it's deeply uncomfortable. As I was tuning into my own wants and desires over the past month, I was feeling so judgy and guilty about even considering focusing on those things and knowing those things. It is actually oppression and lineages of violence and separation from the body and separation from the earth that make us fear our own desires. So while it's easy to look at desire as something that's connected to capitalism, remember that desire in the body existed before capitalism was invented. Desire in the body is something that animals experience. I have never been in the consciousness of a plant, but I imagine that like leaves want to reach towards the sun, or that there's a sensuality in existing as a flower. What we're tapping into is a connection to our animistic knowing that we are part of a web of life, and desire that comes from that is holy, sacred, creative desire. And that is the type of desire that we are learning to root into our bodies as we understand our energetic and spiritual gifts that help us wield our ability to create life in a very responsible, beautiful way. So this month is actually feeling really different than the past 2 months. I think things are going to start to land. I think we're going to start to understand not necessarily what the next big step is, what the next big picture is, but what we need to be doing to nurture our energy fields to prepare for whatever is next without even knowing what's next. So for our tarot for the upcoming month, I pulled the Sun from the Aquarian Tarot, the Three of Wands, and from this angel deck, the card New Love reversed. And what I wrote is a creative sun is being born, horizons are expanding. We see that there is a new dawn, and new love is a frequency growing within. Trust the creative vision, think bigger, hold the frequency that supports big dreams. So what we are being confronted with is to dream beyond what we thought was possible at a time when our mind is going to tell us things are not possible, and to do it in a way that is not escapist. So this is not about rose-colored glasses. This is about coming into honesty with what you really believe is possible, and to not listen to the propaganda of your mind telling you to shrink, telling you to use the past as an indicator of the future, because we're past that now. The reality container that we were in before is breaking in such a way that vision requires you to use the present or your imagination as your blueprint for the future, not the past. The energies that we are calling in are the Seven of Wands, and this feels very clear to me. The Seven of Wands or rods and divine timing from the angel deck. And this is a month where we're calling in focus. We're calling in focus, specificity, and keeping our eyes on the prize. This reminds me of keeping a very active running process, keeping an active meditation process. Maybe there's something like right now, I'm really called to stay on top of like cleaning and dusting and just keeping the energy from getting stagnant. It's almost like I'm preparing for a house guest, but I don't know when they're going to arrive. I'm trying to clear and clean the pipes so that energy can just keep moving. The message for what we're calling in is something clear. Something clears this month, and we are able to tap into focus. We are getting clear on what actions we need to take, more precise and specific. We can feel the winds of change, and the right actions align us with the proper reality targets. Be brave enough to make choices. Focus and practice are the name of the game this month. Those who are training for their own enjoyment, meaning training just for the sake of it, training your energy, training your mind, training your body, training your communication skills, training in any way. Those who are training for the sake of it become ready for opportunities that our mind cannot foresee. So something I've been getting into lately is a very consistent practice of Kundalini yoga. I've been having a very specific practice of walking. This is a month for us to cultivate that. In Inner Sanctum, which is the 3-month membership that begins on October 1st, we're going to be meeting 3 to 5 times a month to be in practice in community, because it's a lot easier to show up when there's a structure and a container and a community and a group energy holding you there. And I designed it that way because when we are in creative flow, we can dip out of the chaos of the controlling mind and move energy and see how life responds to the moving of energy and the consistent practice of that movement. Interestingly, what we are clearing out, I got the Tower, but reversed. And then I got the new beginnings also reversed. So you might notice there's been new love and new beginnings. 2 cards about newness, both reversed in this spread so far. And I think that what we are learning to clear out, what these cards are telling us, is the shock in our system of what has occurred already. Learning how to energetically metabolize the events that we have experienced since 2012, since 2017, since 2020 and beyond. And right now we are learning how to take time to process the eclipses and learning not to rush on to the next, just to start something new. The reverberations of the last 6 months are landing in us more fully. Old feelings are clearing. We're learning not to attach to them as they move through us so that we can move on. Our obsession with breaking from the past entirely allows us to take our time. So we're no longer obsessing and trying to just break things and run away from things and avoid things. We're learning how to face things. And we're learning that we don't need to be addicted to overwhelm and addicted to shock. That while we are being bombarded by these things from the external world, we have the opportunity to take even 5 minutes of deep breath away from external stimuli when we know that our system needs a time to catch up. We're learning not to force new beginnings or resist new beginnings by being in stillness, which is why our actions in the first part of the spread, having these very specific and clear protocols and actions is so helpful for us right now. It's helping us to metabolize and not rush and to get on pace with the energy that is here, to let energy unfold instead of control energy. And we are learning to not force or resist new beginnings. So the old world and the remnants of the old world that live within us can start to be remade, can start to dissolve, and make room for a new foundation. I think that it feels pretty difficult to talk about hope and joy right now. It feels like when we center those things, maybe we're not looking at the world, maybe we're trying to escape, maybe we're just in la la land. But I think it is so incredibly important to remember that on the level of our spirits and souls, there is a lot of creative agency and choice that we have. And we're learning to play with that creative agency and choice without throwing away or dismissing the human experience. So this is very interesting as well. We have a lot of major arcana cards here. So for the tool or practice to support you, the card I pulled was Judgment, which is XX in this deck. It's 20, and my childhood nickname, which a lot of my family still calls me, is actually 1010, and Dreams Reversed. So for the tool or practice to support us, Judgment, Upright, and Dreams Reversed. So I actually feel like a lot of us are learning how to use our voice, and to use our voice even when we're not exactly sure about everything. We're learning how to share in honest ways and to be vulnerable with each other, because we know that this is the energy work that strengthens and bridges polarity that is very much there to divide and confuse and distract people. So the message that came out is start being honest and telling the truth. Your calling is calling, but are you listening? A lot of what is landing needs both your patience and your commitment. Take your time to listen to what the dream world has to say and the dreams you have carried for a long time. This is a month to use your voice. This is a month to trust your truth. Allow yourself to share what feels natural and right for you. Stop holding yourself back for the sake of some invisible audiences, expectations. The only way to clear the air is to speak the truth. So I've had a lot of bumpy communications in these past couple months. My anxiety about being misunderstood or misinterpreted or miscategorized by people who aren't really interested in receiving the whole context of me, but just want a little soundbite. It was so painful. I created an entire course around it. And so this is very, very personal to me to talk about this need to share your truth and how scary it can be. But I have seen in groups of people that our honesty is the bedrock of true innovation. When we come into communities and lie about our capacity, lie about our preferences, lie about our feelings, we essentially mask to protect ourselves. We can't actually feel and realize the potential in the room. And I've been in lots of groups with different people I don't know in the last few months, both online and in person. And I realized that when people are courageous enough to tell the truth, whether it's them saying, I don't feel good about this, whether it's them saying, I don't know the answer to this, I had an insight about this, or whether it's them changing their mind about something. There's a lot of conversation around building community, but sometimes the action and skill set around what it takes to build community can have a gap in it. We can talk very abstractly or ideally without actually coming into intimacy. And I very much recommend the work of Care, whose handle is Erotics of Liberation, because they talk a lot about how conflict requires intimacy and how conflict is means showing up and treating each other in ways that require delicacy and nuance to show that we know the difference between when we are standing up to a global corporation versus having a conflict with a peer, and how often we overreact to things that are conflict and underreact to things that are actually abuse and conflate the two. So I very much recommend their work if you are interested in understanding the nuance. But how can anyone learn if they feel like they're silencing themselves all the time? And how can we learn from each other if we can't listen past our assumptions? And how can we get anything done if we expect everything to be a finished product when it is expressed? We are always moving, we are always in motion. We are like nature, we are more like plants than factories. So if we can learn to be true and honest about the way creation moves through us and act more like plants, act more like nature than we act like factories, we can start to actually make a new world. So lean into dream work this month and lean into being vulnerable with the people you want to be in community with the people you trust, or maybe it's just you and your journal you're being vulnerable with right now. And that counts. That conversation with yourself totally counts. So let's wrap this up with a message from our guides. The cards we received from the message from my guides were very interesting. We've got the Six of Cups, this very sweet card, and abundance. Message from your guides. Little one, pleasure and memory of childhood magic take you a long way. When you indulge the inner child, she is less likely to hijack moments when you need her to adult. Sweetness, quiet, flowers, friendship, and love are so important. Play music, listen to your ancestors, listen to your body. Know that all you have loved will never be lost. It is written in the records of time and space forever. The simple sensory pleasures carry your frequency home. There's been a lot of nostalgia, I think, in the last month. There's been a lot of yearning for childhood. There's been a lot of healing of youth and early adulthood and just old versions of us coming back to reminisce. And I think that there's a reminder that we should offer that part of us something, and that when we offer it something, it stops trying to reroute its energy by screaming at us through, I don't know, trying to take over when we're in the middle of writing a newsletter or a business plan or starting a healthy habit. That inner rebel, that inner teen, that child, it needs fun. It needs sweetness. It needs laughter. It needs that kind of benign rebellion of teenagehood, that sometimes staying up late or, having a joke with a friend. And I think that this is a month of really feeling our multidimensionality and offering different parts of us different things, and coming into deep self-respect and understanding that we are stewards of the divine. We are the divine incarnate. Every one of us is the fractal of the divine, stewarding both the creative spirit who's, creating life, and the one who's living inside the creation that we're creating. We're both the human and the spirit, and we're walking together. We're one. The more we can accept and love all the aspects that make us a spirit and make us a human, the more we can really accept that, the more we can become vessels for transformation and creation. So I would recommend some of the work of Georgia Jean, who channels a group called the Circle of Light. If that last thing I said is interesting to you, their work has really impacted me in a really beautiful way. And we're going to be in my membership, Inner Sanctum, which closes on September 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's the last moment you can sign up. We're going to be walking through the alchemy of self-love for the whole season. The whole season is about feeling worthy of receiving your gifts and sharing them, feeling worthy of receiving your life, and being loving and respectful enough to your own life that you can read the field of life accurately instead of read it from the eyes of those you have put above you. And that is what we will be focusing on. We start October 1st. And we have 3 amazing teachers. We're going to be learning about sigil magic from someone who is so incredibly talented and experienced in working with the cosmos and energies to create art. So there's going to be a creative practice and a skill we're learning in October. In November, Hallie Havocan, who is a trained psychotherapist and psychic medium, is going to take us through a process of ancestral healing. And we're going to talk about how that connects to our ability to create a loving relationship with ourselves. And in December, Lisa Kay from Middle Sister Tarot is going to teach a class that is the introductory foundations of channeling. And we're all channels, so I'm so very excited about that. Along with that, we're going to have a divination practice at the top of every month where I take you through the process that I use to create this transmission so you can start transmitting your own messages for yourself and for your communities. And we're going to have times to reflect and digest all that life is throwing us so that we can become grounded instead of live wires. So I will drop all the links in the show notes. I want to thank you for listening. If you haven't tuned into the September transmission, it might be great to do that. And there is also, for paying subscribers, a energy attunement with the stone guides of last month. And it is very, very powerful. I work with sound. I'm so vulnerable in that recording. So if you're interested in receiving a sort of sound attunement to help you integrate your light body with your material body, I will leave that link also below. Thank you so much for listening. Also, the music you are listening to right now and the opening and closing is by Kristen Sontag, Sunday Diamond NYC. Recommend her whole album. It's so good. I'm wishing you just a very beautiful, supported October, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.